A girl should be two things, who and what she wants, a quote by Coco Chanel, which I also think is very indicative of the story that I'm sharing this week on the podcast of my amazing clients, two female physicians who are on a mission, a movement, if you will, for female doctors to come together to support, uplift, and empower one another to change the community and to reduce burnout so they can experience the life they set out to create. Hey, I'm Amanda, and welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast, where I will teach you how to coach yourself, how to coach your clients, and how to run your coaching business. The number one goal of this show, though, is to help you be the best damn coach you can be so your clients go out and tell the world about you. So, let's do the damn thing. Welcome, Amanda here. Before we kick off this week's episode, I want to share that I'm very excited about the year coming to a close because it means we have a next amazing year together. And it's also the time of year where I begin to open the doors to my private one-to-one coaching. This is an amazing time. There's so much good energy. There's so many of you that are like, this is the year. And here's the thing. I want this to be the year. I don't want you in 2024, a year from now, looking back saying, this was the year and you never took action. You never said yes. You never went forward. If you have hopes and dreams of scaling and growing your coaching business, if you have hopes and dreams of having greater work-life balance, if you have hopes and dreams of increasing your performance, all of these things are areas that I can support you through coaching. And if you are interested in connecting to chat more about what that looks like and how I can best support you, head on over to my calendar. You can book a time to chat at www.amanda-walker.com/let's chat, no apostrophe, LETSCHAT. And you can learn more about my private high performance coaching in life and business and how it can help make 2023 the year you said yes to yourself, took action, and created any result that you desire. All right, ladies, welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast. And I'm excited to have a beautiful client / amazing physician / mama on the show. So please welcome Archana to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Amanda. It's so awesome to sit down with you and talk on your podcast.
Yeah. So we met, I don't even know, it's been a year and change probably, as we both were going through the life coach school program to be certified as life coaches. We had the amazing connection inside basically the community they built. First, I want to talk a little bit just about your backstory. I love ladies to share their kind of more informal bio, but I would love for you to speak a little bit to what did you do before you were a quote unquote coach?
Yeah, I always love the backstory too. So my story is that, I'm a physician. I completed medical school a while ago now, but I went through burnout after I'd been practicing for a number of years. I became a mom. I often say that I went through what I call double burnout because it was not only professional burnout, but also parental burnout as well. Because you come home as a mom, you know this, Amanda, you come home from work, your regular job, right? And then you have the second shift of everything that happens at home between taking care of kids, preparing meals, grocery shopping, taking kids to doctor's appointments, planning the social calendar, all of that stuff that you have to do at home. And that oftentimes falls on the shoulders of women. So I had all of that coming home and was really basically never finding time to take care of myself. And what started to happen was I started to notice I was super crabby. I was not showing up as the mom that I wanted to be. I wasn't showing up at work as the doctor that I wanted to be either. Not only that, I was also really out of shape. I was huffing and puffing going up the stairs. I had two little kids that I was kind of struggling to keep up with. And I remember kind of my wake-up call came when I had to do a life insurance exam. And for the first time in my life, I fell into the overweight category. And for the most part in my life, had been one of those people who sort of out-exercised the bad diet and was able to sort of maintain my weight. But then I was like, whoa, okay, I'm not able to do that anymore. Another big wake up call for me was like when my scrub pants no longer fit. And we all know anybody who wears scrubs knows that scrub pants are pretty forgiving of extra weight. So when they no longer fit, like something has really changed. So I was like, something's got to change. I don't want to keep showing up like this. I knew I wasn't being the best, version of myself that I could be. And so I basically decided I needed to, first of all, start taking better care of myself. And I dove deeper, into a self-care journey, focusing in on my, exercising regularly, making sure I was getting enough sleep, and also eating healthy, and really just scheduling some time for myself. Now, I'm an emergency physician, so I had like this really crazy, chaotic schedule, a lot of stress at work, and that type of thing as well. So, trying to build in a self-care routine was kind of difficult, but I was able to do it. And I was able to lose the weight and feel much better. Felt like I was showing up better at home. But then I would kind of still feel, despite all of those things that I did to really take care of myself, I nonetheless found myself getting burnt out again a couple years later. And that professional burnout is really what hit me again then. And so I kind of had to work through that and realize like what was really going on, because it really wasn't about like physical exhaustion at that point or lack of self-care, because I was actually in a great self-care routine. It was really a lot more about my thoughts and the way I was like thinking about work and my life in general. And so that's kind of what led me to coaching. I ended up starting as a coach, first of all, doing more like wellness coaching and helping other women lose weight and get back in shape. But one of the things that I noticed about that was that it was more about like giving clients, workout routines and meal plans. And it was more about the actions, right? The actions that we wanted them to take to lose the weight. And while I could help them lose weight for a period of time, it would come back because they never really addressed the mindset. That's when I started to really look deeper. And it's like, after coaching many, many clients that way and helping them have like some temporary results, but not necessarily long-term, not very many could have long-term. I was really looking for something different. And that's when I really stumbled upon thought work and really looking for answers as to how do we really change people's mindsets. That's how I ended up becoming a certified life coach through the Life Coach School, and then applying all of that to weight loss as well as to burnout. We have a company called Women in White Coats where we help coach women doctors through burnout, because it's really an epidemic of burnout right now.
Yeah, amazing. As you're talking, like obviously we've connected deeply, but I did see the parallels all of a sudden really clear in our journeys of focusing in on health and nutrition. We both started in that place. Like that was our jam. And then it's probably the science in us, the deeper thinkers in us. But I mean, that's really the part that pulled me in, was the adherence piece and the sustainability piece. Is like, there has to be something more. And I myself was missing it. Nobody had taught me. I, navigated 30 years of my life unaware of this thing called mindset. And I think that it existed, right? Because mindset is just the collection of thoughts and beliefs that we have. But it's so empowering to like give that tool to another human being and say, hey, you just don't know what you don't know until now. And then it's like mind blown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. To finally understand how to like work on that, it's really amazing. I mean, I had definitely been exposed to like mindset and like, oh, you have to have a positive mindset all the time. And it's sort of like, people use that term toxic positivity. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was never one of those people who was like always super pessimistic nor super optimistic. I always felt like I was very much a realist and very practical, and probably being an emergency physician just really reinforced that for me. But I knew it wasn't just thinking positive thoughts, right? Like there had to be something different. Like, how do you really change what you believe about yourself? And that's what I really loved about what we learned, as life coaches.
Yeah, for sure. Can we talk a little bit more to this kind of epidemic of burnout? I think that it's not just in physicians. I just want to say that with respect. There's so many women that are listening to this, even as coaches and entrepreneurs, right? There's entrepreneurial burnout. There's burnout across the map in women with the demands, with the stimulus. But when we come through this COVID era, I mean, wherever we're at with it, I mean, it's different from place to place, I feel like. But I think physicians and nurses and the staff supporting them, NPs, PAs, all of them have had a tremendous amount of demand placed on them. And just that emotional element of dealing with family members and nuances in the hospital settings that aren't what we typically experience. So I'm curious, like, what are the women you're coaching telling you they're most struggling with when it comes to feeling burnout right now?
Yes. I mean, burnout within physicians, like 56% of women physicians report burnout. It's slightly lower for male physicians, but I mean, it's a really high percentage, and it's been high, generally speaking, but it got worse with the pandemic, right? And so, we lost a lot of the support at home in many cases, like, people lost babysitters, daycare, nannies. I remember even people being like, some of my kids' friends not letting them come over to our house anymore because they knew I worked in the ER. And they're like, well, we don't know if she could bring something home or get the kids, anyone sick. So it's sort of like, okay, yes, on the one hand, you're like this hero, right? Like people are calling us like healthcare heroes. But on the other hand, you have like major cooties and nobody wanted to be around you. And then on top of that, you yourself worry that could I bring something home? Could I myself get sick? Could I get my family members sick? And this was obviously all before the vaccine came out, before we had any kind of medications to treat. And we didn't, a lot of people who were getting it were getting pretty sick. And so it's just been like a real roller coaster ride dealing with all of that, and then on top of that, the thing that I think is unique about our profession, and you're exactly right. So many professionals, teachers as well. I know you used to be a teacher, are burnt out, right? But burnout is like so common in so many different fields. But I think what makes the healthcare industry unique is that we're in a system that was already stressed and strained, right? Like there's already not enough resources. There's already not enough staff. And then you add a pandemic to it. And then it's just like even worse. It's like really bringing the whole system to the brink, and not having enough. Remember in the beginning, there was no personal protective equipment. There weren't enough ICU beds. There were not enough ventilators. Like there was crazy stuff going on, like people trying to like make ventilators, at home. Like it was just a really crazy time. And then when you think back, like, most of us are like, well, we were never taught like how to handle a pandemic in medical school. Nor did we ever think one would ever happen. Like we were just thinking like, okay, we've got all the vaccines, like our medicine is so advanced and all this stuff. But then this happens out of the blue. So I think the pandemic added a lot. Not having enough support at home has really strained women physicians. But like, interestingly, those are some of the like kind of like pandemic issues. But like, even before that, like, there's just like an incredible amount of like administrative burden, what we call administrative burden placed on physicians, generally speaking, like so much red tape, if you will, like so many things that need to be documented in the chart. We have this electronic medical record now, which is not very user friendly. And so people are spending lots and lots of time after work just trying to complete their charts and things like that. So that's a big stressor as well. Like people are having to get that work done at home during like quote unquote pajama time. So it's like really interferes with their life at home as well.
I mean, this is also just from an outsider looking in. The thing that's always landed on me, because I've had friends go through medical school, we've seen many movies around, but there is kind of this badge of honor that comes with like, I can take the most hours and stay up the latest and pull the greatest shifts. And it's like this, I think this demand existed obviously way before of like, there's already this buildup or what seems to be a buildup of like, if you want to be successful, you have to muscle through and only the fittest survive. And it's like very archaic from my perspective and nature. I mean, I'm sure that I'm not too far off from that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very militaristic, hierarchical training style. It's very 20th century. I feel it is kind of like militaristic, the way we are trained. And it's sort of like, I remember being a medical student and like you'd be scrubbed in like on a surgical rotation and scrubbed into the OR on like a vascular case. And those are like notoriously long. They're like 10 hours long. And like the surgeon being pissed off if the med student's like, I got to go to the bathroom. I need to scrub out and go to the bathroom. I need to go eat, It was like you were just supposed to ignore every body signal, right? Like your need to go to the bathroom even, and much less eat. And so it's like you had to like basically disconnect. It was like only your head was valuable. The rest of you, like you needed to shut down. Whatever you were feeling in your body just needed to be shut down. And you basically learn to like turn off your signals, what your body is telling you need, whether it's rest or food or going to the bathroom. And so that is definitely a part of it. And you're basically sort of supposed to be like the superhuman. Like, even though we're taking care of humans, right? Like, all our patients are humans and we understand their physiology and their needs and everything. But then we're supposed to be like not human, right? Like, there was this whole thing about like, oh, you never call off sick because then you're just screwing over the rest of the people. And yeah, it is this really like, all about hustle, working hard. It's just kind of sacrifice, a lot of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's really the culture of medicine. And the patient always comes first. But, I actually think that, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of patients. And so, it sounds kind of crazy to say, but like, patients can't come first, like they can't come first unless we take care of ourselves. If you have physicians committing suicide, which we have like 400 already this year in the United States. I mean, how are those patients going to get taken care of? Like, if the doctor can't even take care of themselves, they cannot take care of patients,
Yeah. Well, I want to define burnout. I'm curious what your perspective is, but I've loved this working definition of burnout is when you're not in alignment with your purpose and values any longer. And I think often with burnout, we think this physical burnout, right? The exhaustion and such. But I do think that that is a direct byproduct of not being in alignment with your values and your purpose, because you take an oath as a physician, right? Or whatever you're doing, right? To serve and protect. And when there's so much red tape to serve and protect, when there's so much other stuff that actually takes you away from the heart of service, right? Or when you have these babies at home that you're just dying to get home to, and you feel called as a mother to be in two places, like, that is, for me, a working definition of burnout. I'm curious, like, how do you guys define it, or what do you think about that?
Yes, I love that definition. I haven't heard it said that way. But I mean, it really comes down to a lot of feelings. Like, it's cynicism, it's exhaustion, it's just feeling out of control. Like you don't get to make the decisions, you don't get to control the shots. And it's just this kind of chronic long-term feeling of those things, but when I do like burnout workshops, I actually pull out the definition. Like, what is the definition based on like how is originally, because this was defined originally by psychologists, and they defined it as that a series of feelings that really kind of leads to cynicism in work, or feeling like you're not making any impact, and kind of like, exhausted really, And so I like to look at that and really kind of break it down, because I think when people use the word burnout, it really means something different, somewhat different to each and every person in terms of like what they feel. But it's basically this part of it is this feeling of like, there's really no way out of it. Like, there's nothing that can be done, or it just feels like there's no options of how to get out of it.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of know what you're going to say, because we're both doing this work, but without giving all your like milk and cookies away, like, what's the one big teaching or answer do you feel like as a solution to physicians who might be listening, or for that matter, for anything? Like, what's the next best step to take to start to feel less burnt out?
Well, I think, it can take some time really to work through, but I think the biggest thing is really just looking at your thoughts, your thoughts about it, and really kind of connecting with what's going on for you. What does burnout really mean for you? Sort of, what are those thoughts that you're having about it? Are you like frustrated about work, and what about work is frustrating you? Is it like the number of patients you're seeing? Is it the EMR? Is it that you don't feel like you have the support staff that you need to get your job done? Is it like insurance companies? Is it reimbursement? Like, I don't know what it is. Or is it also that there's not enough support at home? I think like, just first of all, like identifying what you're truly feeling, and kind of those real feelings that you have without having to edit what you're feeling, because a lot of times we're just like automatically judge ourselves that I shouldn't be feeling this way. And especially as doctors, like we feel like, oh, like I'm supposed to always put the patient first. I'm not supposed to care about myself or my feelings. I'm supposed to like self-sacrifice all the time. So we even feel bad just for like saying, yeah, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I feel unsupported. We feel bad for even like identifying what the real feelings are. But I think like, once you identify what those feelings are for you is taking the next step of just what are the thoughts behind those feelings? Because as we know, as coaches and everyone who's listening knows, our thoughts create our feelings. So what are those thoughts that are creating those feelings? And really starting to look at those and seeing which ones serve you and which ones don't. And sometimes it can take the help of a coach to even really identify like what you're really thinking, or just having them ask you some specific questions for you to really kind of create some awareness. I like plugging it into like a thought model and just really diving deeper into that. But aside from that, like I do think that there is some real physical exhaustion that can play into it. And I think that we need to look at both pieces. Like we can't just like look at our mindset and like be like, I need to think some new thoughts. Meanwhile, you're only getting like 3 hours of sleep every night.
Sure.
Like
it's the tactile, like actual lifestyle component as well.
Yeah. So I always look at both things with our clients. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about like how much sleep are you getting? Like, and also, what are you doing for self-care? Like, is there any time, like, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes that you have to yourself, can you drink more water? Can you maybe get some exercise in there? Because all of those things have a really great benefit. I mean, or even like breathing exercises. I was just somewhere last night where they were showing these studies about how like breathing exercises can really help decrease stress and burnout even. And they've even published some studies on that. So, there's some different methods. So I think it's like gotta be both. It can't only be about addressing the mindset. We do have to definitely address the physical exhaustion too.
We were talking about this before we started recording. I think with professional, very high achieving women too, there's an element of guilt for just saying like, yes, I need support. Or we're afraid to say like, something like, I don't want to do this alone. I'm in my own way. I'm stuck. And I'm sure that is a part of the objection, right? For anybody, and especially physicians, to just get over the hump of saying there are communities like this out there for this reason, and you don't have to do it alone. There are many women that are experiencing the same symptoms as you, and like, let's come together and talk about it so we can better create solutions instead of continuing part of the problem.
Yeah, I hung up my cape a long time ago. I stopped trying to be a superwoman. I encourage other women to try to give that up as well. I mean, the whole notion of, you're going to work full time and take care of everything at home and, have this like Pinterest worthy birthday party and all these amazing home cooked meals every night. It's just like,
nope.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's funny. I saw my mom like that. Like she was a doctor as well. And she was this amazing cook and she would do a lot of grocery shopping. She did a lot. And I actually thought like that was possible for myself. And I really guilted myself and felt bad about myself for not being able to do as much as my mom did. And then I was like, wait a minute, like there was a cost for her to do all those things. And her cost was like, she basically self-sacrificed herself. Like she got very little sleep. I do think it kind of affected her mental health in terms of like, she had probably some undiagnosed anxiety and some undiagnosed like depression and things like that. And she did have some chronic illnesses after a while. And so I started to realize like, okay, well, maybe it's like possible I could do all that, but at what cost? It's going to like be a cost of self-sacrifice. At the end of the day, what I want to really give my kids is a healthy mom who's going to be able to be there for them for as long as possible. And somebody who's also like a happy mom too, who like shows up happy and like energetic and, available to them and able to listen to them. And that's also what I want to give my husband and my patients. I want to show up that way to my patients. So I think like, we have to stop trying to be the superwoman, and definitely like, as I was talking about earlier, medical school, medical training kind of reinforces this whole superhuman thing that you're supposed to be superhuman. So I think it's like, no, you're a human and just recognizing you're one human and giving yourself lots of grace and self-compassion. And, I think that that's something that we are never taught in medical school, is how to have self-compassion. And so that's something that I really encourage others to do. And on your point about like reaching out for help, yes, we are definitely way far behind on that. And it's sort of like, a lot of times it seems like a sign of weakness to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's why I actually really love the coaching, because to me, like, athletes get coaches, right? Because they want to be better. They want to go from good to great. Right. And so I think like a lot of people, high achievers, are going to be more open to that than like therapy, for example, because therapy sounds like pathologic, like there's something wrong
Something's
with you.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, you've got a diagnosis, you've got a mental health diagnosis. Definitely, as physicians, we can be very resistant to that. I mean, on top of that, you add the fact that, like, in many states, we are asked about, like, do you have like a mental health diagnosis that could prevent you from taking care of patients, And so there's like questions on our credentialing forms about that. So it becomes very like taboo where we're like, okay, I don't want to have like a record of any kind of psychiatric illness. We are definitely very resistant in that regard, like seeking like, help from a psychiatrist or psychotherapy or even sometimes medications, to help with depression or anxiety or anything along those lines. And so I think coaching is like really amazing in that, okay, it's definitely different from therapy. I'm not saying coaching is therapy by any means, but it's a safe space to talk about things and to really look at your mind. And much of what we do is essentially a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. And so as coaches, and so it's like really just giving space and creating a safe space for that. We actually have studies that have been done on physicians that show that life coaching works for physicians.
Life coaching for all people.
Yes, but it works for physicians on burnout is what I was trying to say.
Yes.
And it helps with decreased burnout. It helps increase like overall well-being among physicians. So we've had studies published in like JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, that are like randomized clinical trials. So that's like the top type of evidence.
Yeah, It's evidence. It's evidence-based. And that is important, I think, especially in your world, right? Because we're relying on as practitioners, like, does this work? Show me how.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'd love to switch gears a little bit because I had the honor of guiding yourself and Amber, who's not with us now, and Women in White coach. And I learned so much from behind the scenes on what, the mind of a physician, why this is a unique, I think, subset of women. And one of the things when we started our work together is you guys were kind of like, okay, we have this vision of this next level and we want to get there. And from my perspective, one of the things holding you back was support. When we start in our businesses, we have this thing, it's challenging, right? To find the right people, to put them on the right seats of the bus. And one of the big, from my perspective, shifts through coaching that was an aha for you was like, we need more people to support us. So I'd love for you to take us back a little bit on like where that was and what some of the learnings have been as you guys are leaning into more experience in your business and growing as well.
Yeah. Gosh, I think we started working with you like about a year ago. And yeah, where were we a year ago? We were like, I always said this, it was a 2-woman show, me and Amber running this whole thing called Women in White Coats. And we are a multimedia lifestyle brand all about uplifting and empowering women doctors. And when I say multimedia, like we now have published 4 books, we have a podcast, we're on all the different social medias, and we have a blog, right? So we were doing so much, just like the the 2 of us. I mean, we had a lot of contributors, like people writing and people coming on the podcast as guests and things like that. And of course, the books were also anthologies written by a group of women doctors coming together. But, we were the ones behind the scenes as the co-founders, really like running everything and keeping it going, right? We always say it was like a passion project, but we wanted it to be more than a passion project. We wanted this to be what we from the beginning knew it could be, which was a really successful business, And so I think like you really helped us identify that we got to stop making this a 2-woman show. Bring the team, create a team. But like, not only that, what I really appreciated about you, Amanda, was just like, you were like, make sure you build your lifestyle into that, like the way you want your life to look. Because as entrepreneurs, we also fall into that hustle mentality of like, I'm going to work every like weekend and evening, For many of us, like we start these businesses sort of on the side of a full-time job. So that is sort of like what you do in the beginning. You are doing like these, working in the evenings or working on the weekends. So we were definitely like, working our regular jobs and doing all this stuff. Some people even call that the 3rd shift. So you've got your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd shift of your side gig.
4th shift as a mother.
Yeah, exactly. And so we added a really amazing business manager to come on to our team. We've built some more systems and got really like clear about like our lifestyle too. And I remember you saying like, listen, Archana, if you want to have your summers off, like more time with your family, then you've got to build a team. And I was like, yes, I do want to have more time with my family in the summers, especially like I live in the Chicago area. So summers are like so precious and so like short with the warm weather and everything. And so, yeah, that really kind of helped me get clear that like, okay, we really need to do this. And also like how to delegate, because I think that's the thing. Like as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to delegate to a team and just like train them well and then like trust them and let go. You have to give up some of that control.
And those are challenging things when you've built this baby of a brand and you truly often have the belief it's like nobody can do it like I can. And truthfully, that is like nobody's going to love my business like me. And I can bring in people to give them the opportunity to hold up a level of expectation and the bar that I desire. I think like back to my own personal journey, when I hired Tina, my OBM, my life changed. The quality of life, because I think like you guys, when I met you, like call it what we want, but I know I was on the verge of burnout because I was trying to be like, I had small team, but it wasn't the people weren't in the right seats. I didn't have the right person. And hiring that project manager, that OBM, for those of you listening that are at that scalable, I think you start to feel it in that 100K mark of like, I need somebody to actually boss me around a little bit. At least that's what I was feeling. And then by the 200K mark, it was like, yeah, nope, like we really got to make some changes here to bring on the right people. And so I think it's so important to think beyond the profitability and go back to that quality of life. And that was a big piece for me when my goal set changed years ago. And it was like, I actually would find making the same profit and not focusing on monetary growth this year, but focusing on freedom. And the way to attain freedom without the monetary growth was to bring in the right people to help me do a larger volume of work without sacrificing my own time to put more into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, basically it was like Amber said this and it was so funny. She was like, yeah, we really need a team member because basically we sit here and assign things to one another back and forth. And it was like so true. And the thing is, it's like at a certain point, there's certain things you just don't really like doing in your business anymore. And you know, you kind of have to do it, you know, everything A to Z in the beginning when you're getting off the ground. But then at a certain point, like, I think it's so important to stick to your zone of joy too, your zone of genius, of course, but also the things that bring you joy, because otherwise you can start to like resent your business after a while.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where we were getting, we're like, we are so driven by the mission, but we're like getting so bogged down in some of the stuff like neither of us wanted to do on top of like our work as doctors and our family life. And so it was just kind of like adding this like negative energy. So you know, having someone else and honestly, like, you know, you talked about like, nobody can do it as good as you, but like, actually there's a lot of stuff other people can do way better than me.
True. There's certain aspects. I think I go back to zone of genius. So like nobody will parent my children the way I want to parent them or be a wife or honestly coach clients that the way I can. I have great supporter roles as coaches, but they've got their own voice and their own flavor. And I think that's what drives me is there are certain things that you and I both do in our lives that nobody can take the place of. And when we get really clear on what those are, it makes it very easy to delegate the rest.
Yeah, I think those things like, so yeah, the coaching of clients, like nobody else could do it, or like teaching workshops or things like that. Like nobody else could do that the way me or Amber does it. And I think also like marketing is something that I feel strongly that I want to keep involved in. Like, so I'm not saying like doing every single piece of like social media, but like coming up with an overall marketing strategy, like the overall messaging, because nobody understands the clients the way I do, or like my ideal client the way I do, because I'm sitting there coaching them, hearing like their deepest, darkest secrets and really like understanding what's going on for them. So I think like, I kind of believe like, you don't fully ever outsource like your marketing. That's something that you also still probably need to stay pretty involved in. High level, you can give some of the execution to others, but like, you know, the overall strategy and sort of, I mean, I personally actually like to write my own copy because I feel like, and others can't do it the same.
No, I totally feel that way, but it is because our hands are in the pot all the time. And I love that you actually pointed that out because I do find with new coaches too, social media appears to be a big pain point for them because their thought is that so many people are crushing it on social media and that's where clients are really pouring in from, which 9 times out of 10, for me, that's not the case for a majority of my clients. They're coming in other ways. And so they want to outsource it because they're like, oh, somebody else will figure it out. I'm like, the point is like when you outsource it, the messaging shifts, you start to miss the mark, or they're going to want you to write the copy anyways, because they're doing the scheduling and the other aspects. So you might as well do pieces of that yourself. But that's just my own opinion. But I agree with you. It's authentic. We are building personal brands, and they want to see the human and the personal connection behind it in an effort to really connect with who they may or may not invest with in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and it really does pay off. Like, I mean, I can remember so many times where I would get on social media and, I mean, of course there's organic versus paid social media, but like I would get on there and be like, hey, we have this event coming up. We'd love for you to come. And then next thing I know, like clients were coming and I'd say, where'd you hear about it? And they're like, yeah, on social media, I saw something you posted. And it's like, okay, so it does work. Yeah. And it can have like a pretty big return on your investment. Like even if you spend like 30 minutes a day on it, it could actually grow the business quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you shared your journey, your story, our connection. And I would love for you to share. I know you have some great resources for other physicians that might be like this message lands well, but can you let my listeners know where they can connect more with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to really go is to our website called womeninwhitecoats.com. And there you can also find, how to connect with us on social media and Instagram or Facebook. And we also have like a free resource as well, or many free resources, but like one of my favorite ones right now is really sharing, because I see so many women physicians, feeling burnt out right now. We have a free training that people can watch called the 3 Steps to move from exhausted and overwhelmed to confident and balanced as a woman physician. So I'd love for people to check that out and hear more about really how to make progress in that area.
Amazing. And one thing I didn't highlight is you also support physicians specifically on the health component too. So, and that's still like a big part of who you are and your passion. So if ladies are listening and they're feeling more called to connect with that, where can they connect with you there?
Yeah, they can go to my website called mightymommd.com.
Perfect. And if you're listening, all those things will be dropped in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Amanda. It's been so great to talk with you today.
One of the most important things you will ever do as a coach is ask questions. So I've put together a simple go-to resource that you can have in your back pocket as a coach of 10 powerful questions I believe every coach should know. So go ahead and head on over to amanda-walker.com/questions to grab yours now.